Fund. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
Chaos erupting on the House floor yesterday as Republican Congressman Max Miller of Ohio rightly accused anti-Israel Michigan Representative Rashida Tlaib of advocating for terrorism. Chad Pergram with more.
It was a debate over war powers and Lebanon. That's when a verbal fracas erupted. Ohio Republican Max Miller accused Michigan Democrat Rashida Tlaib of siding with terrorists. Tlaib is Palestinian American and often opposes Israel.
Hezbollah is a terrorist organization from the gentlelady from Michigan, and its members are butchers that you like to, hang out with to a certain extent. No nation can be fully sovereign when an armed group operates outside the authority of its elected. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we getting a little emotional?
Gentlemen will suspend.
Tlaib is one of the most controversial members of Congress. She yelled at Miller, accusing him of attacking her character. But Miller dialed it up a notch and chided Tlaib.
I certainly believe you advocate for them, yes. You advocate for terrorists on a daily basis.
The House will be in order.
Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin testified yesterday before a congressional committee where he addressed allegations of poor conditions for detainees at the Delaney Hall ICE facility in New Jersey. Secretary Mullin said despite claims of so-called peaceful protests, it is the workers who are experiencing a brutal enforcement environment.
Delaney Hall, I've had officers bit, hit, scratched. We had one get threatened. They were going to kill him and his family. That's peaceful. Damaging vehicles and property, that's peaceful.
The Texas Attorney General sues a Texas city over a changing room issue. Robert Thornton has more.
According to the Texas Attorney General's office, Attorney General Ken Paxton sued the city of Denton and city officials to prevent the creation of multiple occupancy so-called gender-neutral changing rooms at a publicly owned swimming pool. The lawsuit comes ahead of a June 7th event dubbed Big Gay Swim Day, organized by two nonprofit groups, Pride Denton and Outreach Denton, at the Quakertown Civic Center. The AG's office says that event organizers have publicly advertised that gender-neutral changing rooms will be available on-site during the event, and that is a clear violation of state law. Mary Elizabeth Castle of Texas Values.
The Texas Women's Privacy Act was passed last year at the Texas Capitol. It defines male and female based on biological terms and simply says that men must go in men's private spaces and women must go in women's private spaces. This applies to public schools, public colleges, domestic violence shelters, even our prisons, but any government-owned building.
Texas Scorecard reports that the city, prior to any action by the AG, proactively took all necessary measures to ensure full compliance with state law.
It's an important issue because there have been many examples, even in schools, where men will go into women's restrooms and locker rooms, and, women are in a state of undress, they're vulnerable.
The two nonprofits said they had already removed references to all gender bathrooms from event advertising after being contacted by city staff. I'm Robert Thornton.
Oil prices fell and U.S. markets were mixed a day after declines on Wall Street snapped a 9-day winning streak for the S&P 500. Oil prices fell more than 2%. More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Thoughts of the child you were carrying keep pouring over in your mind. A deep, unrelenting sadness overshadows your days, and you wonder if you will ever feel whole again. There is hope and healing from a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline, 866-482-LIFE, and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential, and we will help you find healing. 866-482-LIFE.
Welcome to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Schreve, Senior Pastor of First Baptist Church in Texarkana, Texas. Now, here's Pastor Jeff.
Well, good Thursday morning and welcome to Real Truth for Today. Pastor Jeff Schreve here. Hope you're having a wonderful morning. I have to give a shout out to John and Lisa Bowden. They're my friends from Arkansas, and I did their wedding so many years ago, 25 years or so ago, 30 years ago maybe. and they're big Texas Tech Red Raider fans, and so UT girls softball team's playing Texas Tech for the championship, and they texted me and said, hey, or don't be too tough on us or something like that. I don't follow UT softball. I really only follow UT football, University of Texas football. So they said you got to watch it. It's really, really good. So anyway, she listens to the program. They listen to the program on a regular basis. So I wanted to give them a shout out. And when I think about current events, I always think about 1 Chronicles 12:32, where it talks about the sons of Issachar. They were men who understood the times and what Israel should do. And when I want to better understand the times, there's a particular name and a person I go to, and that's my friend Rod D. Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Capital, and the founder of the Rod Martin Report, political commentator and strategist. And so, Rod, it's always a pleasure to welcome you to the program.
Great to be here.
Well, okay, so Rod, I'm coming to your neck of the woods on Sunday night for the Southern Baptist Convention, and I know you're very involved in the Southern Baptist Convention, and so give me your thoughts. Let's start off our conversation talking about the SBC and how important is this convention?
Well, it actually is very important. It is frequently said by pastors who I believe mean to be showing humility that God doesn't need the SBC. Well, that's probably true, but you sure do. The Southern Baptist Convention has 6 seminaries that educate about a third of the seminary students on this continent. The Southern Baptist Convention has the largest missionary force of any denomination in the world. The Southern Baptist Convention is a collection of 47,000 churches across this country that does tremendous work. Disaster relief. You wouldn't even think of disaster relief, but we're the 3rd largest disaster relief agency in America, behind only FEMA and the Red Cross. What Southern Baptists do in American life and around the world is actually quite extraordinary. Here in Florida, where we're having the convention, in Orlando next week, we have multiple orphanages. They don't call them that anymore. That's not politically correct. But we have 7 residential facilities for orphan children. We have an insane number in foster care. We have orphanages around the world. That's just one of our Baptist state conventions. And it's simply incalculable how important it is. So for Southern Baptists, it's really essential that you show up at the annual meeting. The annual meeting is where we do our business. It's where we give direction to the convention. It's where we decide how the tithe money that goes through the SBC gets spent. And I can't stress that enough. It's not their money, it's your money. And that money affects all of those people getting an education in our seminaries, all of those people getting disaster relief, all of those people hearing the gospel on the mission field, all of those people planting churches here at home. All of that happens at the annual meeting. It is a basic stewardship function, just like tithing. You need to show up and actually have a say over how the Lord's money is spent.
How many do they predict will be coming to this convention, Rod? Do you know?
I haven't heard a number. I hear it's probably going to be pretty good. We published an article that suggested that it could be similar to Nashville in 2021. I assume that it's going to be less than that. Nashville was really a blowout. We nearly doubled the number of messengers there that we'd have in a normal year. But in a normal year, around 10,000 is pretty standard. You can end up in a city that's far away from the South and the numbers drop a little bit.
Yeah.
But in Orlando, I would expect them to be up just on general principles. Who doesn't want to go to Disney World? So we expect a huge crowd. A previous Southern Baptist Convention, the one in Dallas in 1985, was actually the largest deliberative assembly in the history of the world. It's really quite extraordinary
Wow.
to have so many people qualified and voting in a single room, and it is not to be missed.
How many came to the one in Dallas?
In 85, it was 45,000. That was at the very height of the conservative resurgence. Everything was on the line. This was going to decide it, and it did decide it. And of course, that's the one where our favorite sermon was given at the pastors' conference. Dr. Criswell, W.A. Criswell, longtime pastor of First Baptist Dallas, founder of Criswell College, which sadly has gone woke after his death. But Dr. Criswell stood up and gave this tremendous sermon called Whether We Live or Die. And it's just a must watch. I show it to my staff, and note, I'm not a pastor and this is not a church, but I show it to my staff every single year.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good to know. All right, so Rod, I look forward to seeing you there. We're voting for the new president, Clint Presley, who's done a good job, in my opinion, as president for the last 2 years. So you have normally a 2-year stint as president, not always, but normally. And so we have a vote for president, and Willie Rice is the guy I'm voting for, unashamedly. And then the issue with women. Al Mohler's amendment to really clarify about women pastors in the Southern Baptist Convention. We've been talking about this for a long, long time. It's as Todd Friel says, it's the camel's nose under the tent. You let that go, and it's Katie bar the door. Would you agree with that assessment?
Oh, I absolutely would. And just briefly, I want to give shout out to Clint Presley. He has done a good job. It may be better in some ways than I expected, in fact, although I thought he would do well. Willie Rice will be even better. Willie Rice is a man I always thought to have a lot of integrity, but he proved to have a lot of humility. This is the only major SBC leader I can think of who was wrong about wokeness, who actually publicly repented and said, hey, I was wrong. This was off. This was not biblical at all. We shouldn't have done this. And, I think we ought to make him, president for like 10 years just for the humility. I'm totally impressed. We don't have a lot of that in the SBC sometimes. So go Willie Rice, and show up in Orlando to vote for him. Yeah. The problem with egalitarianism is just very straightforward. It is absolutely prohibited by the Bible. There's no getting around the clear teaching in 1 Timothy 2 and 1 Timothy 3, and honestly elsewhere. And people say, well, this isn't fair. Women ought to be able to be preachers, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, there are denominations where they can be. You can go be part of those. Mm-hmm. But here, we actually believe that the Bible is the inspired word of God and that we have to do what it says. Yes. And, there are clearly things in the Old Testament that don't apply today because of the finished work of Christ on the cross. So, no, I'm not going to go sacrifice a sheep or anything, but this, and I'm not saying that most of the Old Testament teaching is done away with. Yea, right. Not one jot nor tittle shall pass away till all things have come to pass. We don't get to murder and steal and covet either, right. But we absolutely have a duty to uphold the standards that the Lord has directly given us. And if we believe that all of the Word of God is actually God-breathed, that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, that Jesus is the incarnated Word of God, and his words are what we are to live by. If that's true, we don't get to just rip 1 Timothy out of the Bible. So what happens in all these denominations that go egalitarian is that pretty soon they're compromising on what a lot of other things in the Bible have to say. They're pretty soon, having gay days and, just all these terrible things that we're seeing in the formerly mainline denominations, which are shrinking away to nothing because nobody wants to be part of a faithless church. And that is one of the great things about the SBC. The SBC has remained the largest Protestant denomination in the United States precisely because it has a reputation for biblical faithfulness. And it would be very, very foolish of us, if all we're thinking about is marketing, but very, very foolish of us if we're thinking about obedience to the Lord our God, to go down this egalitarian road. So we also need to show up in Orlando to vote for Al Mohler's amendment.
Yes, I agree with that. Okay, let's turn our attention to the war in Iran. We keep thinking, there's going to be a peace deal, and Rod, I just look at it like this is Iran's tactic. They just stall and stall and stall so that they can regroup. Now, I think they've been greatly devastated, obviously, by the bombing. But where do you see this going? Eventually, you and I have talked about this before. Eventually, they run out of steam, but the American people want things immediately. They don't have much stomach for patience, and it seems like Trump is not in a hurry to have a bad deal. He wants to have a good deal. So, where do you see that standing right now?
Now, you just stated the key to the whole thing. Donald Trump doesn't seem to be in a hurry. Now, that's absolutely flooring the Iranians. They don't know what to make of that because they're used to watching us just lose patience and give up. And it's absurd how we have handled that. You can argue for the outcome in Korea. You can make a case for that. But in Vietnam, they just wore us down in our own media. And we won every battle. We won every military engagement. We won a peace treaty that was nothing but a North Vietnamese surrender. And then we walked away and let them have everything we'd fought for. And Biden did the same thing in Afghanistan. And arguably, Obama did the same thing in Iraq. Iraq turned out a little better, but only a little better. And, they're used to us just getting tired of things, giving up, moving on, and the Democrats, in their view, are probably going to win the midterms. Now, I think the Iranians are as wrong as CNN on that one, but the truth of the matter is they think they can outweight Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't look like a guy who can be outweighted. He hasn't invaded. There are no ground forces to worry about, keeping there or removing or any of that. There's no forever war. The only forever war here is the forever war that Iran has been waging against all of us for 47 years. There's not a major armed conflict in the Middle East that isn't funded, directed, and armed by Iran. And Donald Trump understands that. He wants to expand the Abraham Accords. He wants to have general peace throughout the region, in part just because it's the right thing to do, in part because he wants to be able to move U.S. forces out of harm's way, make that area peaceful, and then move on to dealing with the Chinese. And the truth of the matter is that can never happen as long as the Iranian regime is in power. So I think they've completely miscalculated it. And I suspect that the president expected them to do so. Every day the blockade continues, they lose between $400 and $500 million more dollars. They can't sustain it, and I think he's going to outlast them until he's good and ready to bomb them.
Okay. Very good. Well, we're talking to Rod D. Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Capital and the Rod Martin Report. Rod has very astute political insights, a great strategist and commentator. And so we're talking about what's going on in the world today. You're listening to Real Truth for Today. Pastor Jeff Schreve here on American Family Radio. We're up against a break, but we'll be right back. Don't go away.
America was founded as a nation under God, but the U.S. Supreme Court has broken our national relationship with God. Many court rulings have contributed, but three stand out. In 1962, the court removed prayer from public schools. In 1963, the court removed Bible reading from public schools. And lastly, in 1980, the court removed the Ten Commandments from America's classrooms. The Supreme Court broke our relationship with God, and any restoration of that relationship must include the Supreme Court. And a vacancy on the Supreme Court could soon be coming. So please support AFA Action's urgent legal work to help President Trump select and the U.S. Senate confirm godly constitutional justices for the Supreme Court. We put thousands of hours of research into potential nominees. We use our networks at the Trump administration and the U.S. Senate to promote the good nominees and oppose the bad ones. AFA Action needs the resources of supporters like you to help maximize our efforts. So please visit afaaction.net to learn more and donate today.
Every weekday, strengthen your family and your faith with Family Talk.
I had the same brain when I was at the bottom of the class that I had at the top of the class. Exactly the same brain, but a different attitude. What does that tell us about our responsibility to develop the intellect of the people in our spheres of influence?
Don't miss Family Talk with Dr. James Dobson every weekday at 6:30 a.m. and 9:30 p.m. Central on AFR.
Hello, I'm Sam Rohr, president of the American Pastors Network, a growing national network of pastors committed to the authority of Scripture and preaching the whole counsel of God. We believe biblical obedience is the foundation for revival, and impacting our culture for Christ is our duty. For too long, the pulpits of America have been silent on the important issues such as marriage and family and assault on our liberty. Join us in the battle for truth on Stand in the Gap weekend, Sunday evenings at 6 p.m. on American Family Radio, and visit us at AmericanPastorsNetwork.org.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes. Stand by for news and commentary next. There is atheist outrage in Lebanon, Virginia. There's a painting on a wall inside Honaker Elementary School. It features a giant orange tiger paw, along with the words Philippians 4:13. Now, that's the Bible verse that says we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. The Freedom from Religion Foundation is an atheist hate group based in Wisconsin. They get triggered by the name of Jesus. They say the message violates the law, noted that religion is a divisive force in public school, and they demanded the school district remove the Bible verse from the wall. Well, instead of telling the atheist to go to church, the school superintendent complied with their demands, writing a letter telling the atheist the Bible verse had been removed. They literally painted over the Bible verse. You know, it's a shame kids in Lebanon, Virginia have to check their Christian faith at the schoolhouse door, but atheists won't be satisfied until they completely eliminate our faith from the public marketplace. I'm Todd Starnes.
This is Real Truth for Today. Podcasts of the program are available on the podcast page at afr.net. Now, back to Pastor Jeff Schreve.
Welcome back to the program. We're talking about current events with my friend Rod D. Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Capital and the Rod Martin Report. And right before the break, we were talking about the war in Iran and negotiations and things. Rod, Fox News reported that there were some harsh words that President Trump said to Benjamin Netanyahu. He was very upset about some things that Israel was doing. Is that relationship strained, in your opinion?
No, not at all. And, you know, it's unfortunate that anyone would leak anything from that call. That's the kind of call where you're supposed to have frank discussions and air your differences and figure out what to do. And, you know, it's very unhelpful for people to air that. You know, if you have an argument with your wife over where to go on vacation, you don't want that broadcast in the newspaper. And it's that kind of thing. Trump is the biggest supporter of Benjamin Netanyahu who's ever served in American leadership, and vice versa. You know, Israel has proven to be a model ally, and I mean that in the strict sense, a model. We want all our allies to be like Israel. We want them to carry their own weight, take care of their own backyard, and rarely need American help. And we want that to be Japan, and Japan's stepping up and doing it. We want that to be the Philippines. The Philippines is stepping up and doing it with Japanese help, actually, which is an interesting development. South Korea, Australia, India is now more or less in our camp and definitely capable. And that's the model we want for Europe as well. And we get it out of Poland and we get it out of Sweden, and we definitely do not get it anymore out of France or Great Britain or Spain. So Israel is a key relationship they are doing a lot of good in the region, and they're not always going to agree with us because they're not our puppet and we're not theirs. We're actually, we're not exactly peers. We've got nearly 350 million people and they've got 10, but we are both sovereign nations, and Donald Trump believes in nations, in nationalism, in the idea that countries get to make their own decisions and rule themselves. And so, they're going to have an argument or two, but I wouldn't overthink it. The truth is Hezbollah has been firing thousands, I'm not kidding, thousands of rockets into Galilee, the northern part of Israel, into residential neighborhoods, all this time during this so-called ceasefire, and the Israelis have to deal with that. So the way you deal with that is another question, and that's what they were discussing, and I wouldn't read too much into the way the media handled that discussion.
Okay, good to know. Let's talk about the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act seems like it needs to be saved. It seems like that is not going to happen. How do you see it?
Well, we need to send the SAVE Act to a tent revival. That's for sure. But we got good news out of Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson, of course, is Speaker of the House. He's a Southern Baptist from Louisiana. Used to be a member of Brad Jerkovich's church, actually. And Mike Johnson has done an admirable job in a role that, honestly, he wasn't that well prepared for. He was not who the Kevin McCarthy, John Boehner wing of the Republican Party ever wanted to see in the speaker's chair. And so they didn't give him the preparation that someone they had designated. So he comes into the office, he's swimming a little bit right at the first, but he has really grown in the job. He is a fantastic upgrade over the speakers we've had for the preceding 15, 20 years. So with that said, Johnson just announced the other day that he's going to attach the Save America Act, which requires voter ID, which requires a lot of very basic election integrity measures. He's going to attach it to the reconciliation bill. Your audience may or may not know, but with the reconciliation bill, you only get one or two of these a year. But when you do it, the deal is that the House and the Senate pass it on a straight up and down vote. And there's no filibuster, there's no 60 vote requirement, you just have a vote. Well, can we pass this in the Senate? I don't know. Also, there's a twist in the rule. The parliamentarian of the Senate gets to decide if it's something that legitimately falls within the rules that allow things to be included in the reconciliation bill. Well, here's where we have a real problem with Majority Leader John Thune, Republican senator from South Dakota. He has kept a Senate parliamentarian who was appointed by Democrat Senator Harry Reid, who was just abominable. And this parliamentarian has been abominable, and it's ridiculous. Oh, well, we can't fire the parliamentarian. Well, that's funny. Trent Lott fired the parliamentarian. Bob Dole fired the parliamentarian. What's the big deal? So if the parliamentarian kills this, I think that Thune must fire her. And if he won't, he really needs to go. This is a no-brainer. And Johnson has teed it up. So I think we've got a shot, and it really does come down to John Thune and his willingness to actually do his job and represent the agenda that all those Republicans were sent up there to enact. Now, having said that, there is a backup plan. Donald Trump's executive order on mail-in ballots is outstanding. We published a piece on this yesterday at rodmartin.org, and this EO requires the kind of barcode handling for mail-in ballots that you would have for parcels. So nothing we aren't doing every day with everything that shows up in your mailbox, but just basic security. So we know we don't have a barcode on the ballot, for heaven's sake, but one ballot per envelope. There's a barcode on the envelope, so we know it came from someone who is eligible, and the federal government is going to provide a list of people to the states that fit federal eligibility. The states then reconcile that and figure out who's who. The important part here is that the Justice Department will prioritize prosecution of elected officials who let non-eligible people through the system. And this is the mechanism to make it happen. This EO already stood up on one federal court challenge. I think we've got a good chance of making it stick. Honestly, if Trump pulls that off, it does a big percentage of what we needed done through the Save America Act. And so we've got a belt and suspenders on this one.
Very good. Okay, big news in Texas was Ken Paxton beat John Cornyn decisively. And so now it's you have James Tallarico, who is just awful, in my opinion, because what makes him so awful is he presents himself as this Fred Rogers, kind, sweet, Christian young man. He couldn't be further from the truth of the Bible, but he presents himself as, I've studied, I'm a seminarian, I know these things, let me tell you what the Bible really says about abortion and homosexuality, those kinds of things. And then you have Ken Paxton, who's got so much baggage attached to his name. I played a clip yesterday from Josh Howerton, who said this is why you vote for Ken Paxton, even though he's got all these problems, because you can't vote for a heretic who's trying to hijack Christianity and get Christians to support abortion and homosexuality and transgenderism and all those things. So as you look, you're a Texas boy, at least some part of your life was. How do you see that race?
Tallarico is abominable. I don't think that there are going to be many Texans who think that he is in any way acceptable. I think Beto actually made a pretty good race of it. He did that with an awful lot of outside help. I don't think that Tallarico will be as successful with that, and I think he's going to really offend Christians when they realize just how anti-Christian his beliefs really are. He reminds me of Ezekiel's vision of the priests and the son of the king in the temple sacrificing to the Baals. It's just absurd. This guy uses the name of Christ in vain constantly, not in the sense of cursing, in the sense of attaching the name of the Lord to things that are utterly ungodly. And he just lets it all hang out. Puts it in this pious language, but there's nothing pious about it. So I really think Tallarico is horrifying, and I think most Texans will too. Now, having said that, does Ken have some problems? Sure, absolutely. He's a politician. He's not a pastor. He's got some issues. What else is new? But, he's the man for the hour. This is a guy who fights. This is a guy who consistently fights for things that we care about. This is the only alternative to Tallarico. And honestly, it's just thrilling that he whacked John Cornyn. John Cornyn was up for Senate Majority Leader. He got pretty close. Thune beat him, but he did well. He was a serious possibility. This is a very powerful man. This is a man who's represented Texas in the Senate since 2002. Incumbents have an overwhelming advantage, and Cornyn had more than most. Cornyn and his allies spent over $110 million for him to keep this seat, which was almost 10-1 more spending than Ken Paxton and his allies. They outspent Paxton nearly 10-1, and Paxton beat Cornyn 2-1. So that just goes to tell you, money isn't everything in politics. No, you can't buy a Senate seat most of the time. If the people actually get engaged, they can actually exercise the sovereignty that they have. And by the way, the same thing applies to the Southern Baptist Convention. Show up and exercise your sovereignty over the presidency of the SBC and elect Willie Rice. It's all about who shows up. And it's all about who showed up in the primary in Texas. By the way, the last time we had a sitting U.S. Senator of either party lose in their own primary was Dick Lugar, all the way back at the beginning of the 2010s. And we just had two. We just had two, not just John Cornyn in Texas, but also Bill Cassidy in Louisiana. Donald Trump's win-loss record on this at this point is about 120-1. And he's just killing it on his endorsements. And we're getting rid of these rhinos, and we are upgrading the party. If the party doesn't represent the voters who sent it into power, what good is it? And that's exactly what's beginning to happen as we prune the tree, we get rid of these rhinos. The taxidermists are making a fortune right now, and the Trump agenda has a real shot at getting enacted in his final 2 years in office.
All right, Rod, let me ask you this. Your latest article, the EU discovers Trump was right on China.
Yes.
What was that about?
Well, they figured out that China abuses the system. China is an economy in extreme distress. And it's just obvious why, and it should have been obvious to everybody 10 years ago when I was already talking about where it was going. And everybody's like, you're crazy. China's going to be the next superpower. 10 years before that, Gordon Chang published a book on this, and everybody just laughed at him. Well, here we are. The appearance of capitalism isn't capitalism. China appears to be very capitalist in many respects, and in a few it is. But China is a system without a convertible currency, with extreme capital controls, where the state controls every corporate board in an absolute fashion. They give it the appearance of functioning, but there's a party apparatchik in the room who tells them what they can and can't do. And there's still a command and control economy where it counts. They've pumped up their economic numbers for years by building ghost cities, entire cities that they're supposedly going to move the population of an old city into, that are mostly sitting empty. They built this enormous high-speed rail network all over the country, and everybody in the West is oohing and ahhing. This is what socialism can achieve. Well, but nobody wants it. Nobody rides it. It's losing money every single ride. So, this is a catastrophe for them. So you can only pump up your economy that way so long before you actually have to start paying for it. Mm-hmm. And that cannot be done in the Chinese system because the Chinese system does not consume, it exports. Its consumption rate is about half of that of the rest of the industrialized world. It has keyed its entire economy on exporting to the United States and to Europe. That's why she actually is on good terms right now with Trump. Trump is rearranging the chessboard a bit, but Xi needs the American market. He also needs the European market, but the Europeans have let him get away with dumping products into their market that have the effect, at ridiculously low prices because the socialists don't care about making money. So they dump all these products into Europe. It destroys the European industries trying to compete with them. And the Europeans are finally figuring out it's a disaster. They're about to be deindustrialized as a result.
Well, we're talking to Rod Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Capital and the Rod Martin Report. When we come back from the break, we'll be taking your calls. 888-589-8840. That's 888-589-8840. If you have a question or a comment for Rod, now's the time to ask it. That guy knows more things about more stuff than anybody I've ever met. So give us a call and let's talk.
As we watch world events unfold and fulfill Scripture, it's hard to believe anyone could doubt God and His Word are real. And yet there are so many who either question or completely refuse to believe it.
The God Who Speaks is a 90-minute documentary that hits the doubt head-on with evidence that proves God is real and His Word is the ultimate authority. Watch it anytime and invite others to watch with you. Just visit stream.afa.net. That's stream.afa.net.
The American Family Association's mission is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. We also support the church. Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. We believe true morality flows from biblical principles and directs people to the manner in which God intends them to live.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association as we seek to stop the erosion of godly values.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
When I was feeling the stress of too much credit card debt, I looked at two different options: debt settlement and debt management. They may sound the same, but guess what? They're not. Debt settlement seemed like a quick fix, but I found out it would destroy my credit, create tax headaches, and hit me with huge fees. They actually told me to stop paying my bills. No way, not me. Then I turned to a debt management plan developed by the team at Trinity. They worked with my creditors, lowered my payments, reduced my interest, saved me thousands, and paid off my debt. And Trinity is a Christian company, which is important to me.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-788-1813.
Hi, I'm Doug Chamberlain, host of Family Health Checkup. For over 30 years, Samaritan members have come together to share medical costs and lift each other up in prayer. Now, I'm excited to tell you about Redeem Health Share Ministry, Samaritan's next generation of healthcare sharing. Redeem offers affordable, flexible programs that reflect your values and help you manage medical costs with confidence. Each month, members contribute a share amount to help pay each other's medical bills, and you choose the providers and treatments that are right for your family. It's not insurance, it's a community of believers supporting one another through life's health challenges. So, whether it's a routine visit or a sudden emergency, there's a caring Christian community walking with you every step of the way. Redeem Health Share. It's more than healthcare. It's hope. It's healing. It's faith in action. Call 1-844-REDEEM-0 today. Join the movement. Share joyfully. Live redeemed.
If you'd like to contact Pastor Jeff, email pastorjeff@fromhisheart.org. Now, back to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Schreve.
Welcome back to the program. Let me just remind you, we have a trip set for Israel in 2027, April 2nd through the 11th. Love for you to go with me. If you've never been to Israel, it truly is a trip of a lifetime. We're trusting the Lord that by 2027, all of this stuff going on in Israel is going to settle down, and it'll be a great time to visit the land. April is a good month to go because it's warm, but it's not too hot. And so we'll have a great time together April 2nd through the 11th. You can find out all the details by going to fromhisheart.org, fromhisheart.org, and just click the link titled Holy Land 2027. Look forward to having you potentially go with us. That'll be a great time. We're talking to Rod Martin. Rod is the president and founder of CEO of Martin Capital and the Rod Martin Report. And we're going to the phone lines. We've been talking to Rod about a host of things. Rod knows, as I said, he knows more stuff about more things. You can ask him almost any question about what's going on in this part of the world, what's going on in that part of the world, and he knows about it. He knows about politics here in America. He knows about spiritual things and what's going on in Christendom, especially in the Southern Baptist Convention. So we've been talking about a host of things, and now we're opening it up for you to ask your questions, 888-589-8840, and the phone lines are filling up. And so we have Paul on the line from Texas. Paul, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Yes, thank you. I would like Mr. Martin's opinion of Trump apparently saying that he'd like Todd Blanche to be the Attorney General permanently. I personally have some serious concerns, having read about Todd Blanche removing Ed Martin, not to be confused with Rod Martin, from the weaponization working group. And a lot of complaints from us on the right is, how come the Biden and Obama administration got to do all these dirty tricks that basically are illegal? And my perception is Ed Martin was working on it. Todd Blanche removed it. And so, anyway, you can tell how I feel about it. I want to see what Mr. Martin, your guest, has to say about that.
All right, good question, Paul. Rod?
Well, I'm a fan of Ed. I've known Ed for years, not super well, but he's a good guy. He's very effective in Missouri. He was effective with Eagle Forum, although he got in a bit of a tiff with part of the Schlafly family. There was a little civil war in that organization for a while. I thought he did a great job on weaponization. I don't really know why Todd Blanche removed him, and I don't want to suggest motives for Todd that may not be there. Sometimes it's just not a good fit for some reason, and sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with the guy. Ed is a lightning rod, and I resemble that remark. So I understand, there are just some jobs for which I'm not well suited because of my public persona, and that may have been what happened there. But in general, I know Todd Blanche has the president's trust. He was one of the president's personal attorneys. He has been pretty aggressive on indictments of key Democrats who have clearly committed real crimes. And I don't think this was a policy thing. I suspect it was something else.
Just probably personality. Well, you can't have two bulls. When people wanted Trump to have Ron DeSantis as his running mate, those guys are cut from the same cloth. I don't think that works very well when you have two bulls in the same pen. But I appreciate the question, Paul. It's a good question. We have Jerry on the line from Texas. Jerry, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Well, thank you, brother. Question for the gentleman. I put Christian before I put conservative. However, with the way that the president talks about, we're exporting they call fossil fuels, but petroleum and natural gas and these other things to other countries now, I've heard Christian economists, I've heard secular economists, I've heard even politicians stating that the gas prices increased due to this, that, or the other thing. But as a common person that studies and can read, it would seem that if we're exporting this amount of petroleum and fuels, why are we now as Americans paying more at the pump if it isn't just corporate greed, in my opinion? I thank you for your time, and I'll listen for the answer. Y'all have a blessed day.
All right, thanks, Jerry. Rod?
Well, there are multiple layers to this problem. The biggest single reason we have more expensive gasoline in the United States is lack of refining capacity. We have, and in two ways, we have optimized a rather larger than expected percentage of our refineries to handle the heavy crude that comes from Venezuela and Canada, because, we've been doing business with the Venezuelans long before they went crazy and became a Marxist dictatorship. And, now we're bringing them back into the modern world. And I expect that the opposition will be in power within a year or two. Nevertheless, they're doing Trump's bidding. We're getting the oil flowing. We're actually getting that to Texas and Louisiana to be refined. We're about to have this new 500,000 barrel a day pipeline from Alberta, so we're going to increase the amount of heavy oil that comes out of Alberta that we're refining here. Those things will help gasoline prices, but they don't happen quickly. The thing is, a lot of our refineries aren't well optimized for American oil, which is a much higher grade oil. And that just floors me, but it makes sense in the era in which these decisions were made, when we were producing vastly less oil. We have tripled U.S. production over the last 15 years, which is just extraordinary. So we are now the world's largest producer. We produce more crude oil, but you can't burn crude in your car. We produce more crude oil than Russia and Saudi Arabia put together. We produce more natural gas than anybody, and that used to kind of be the filet mignon of energy. And there wasn't any such thing as a liquefied natural gas terminal, so you couldn't ship it anywhere, you couldn't pipe it in. And all of a sudden, we're shipping LNG all over the world. So our exports are helping the American economy in a really big way. The bottleneck on gasoline prices is somewhat tied to the price of oil, although you'll notice the price of gasoline has skyrocketed much, much higher in other parts of the world during this war because they just don't have what we have. And when the war is over, that'll drop, but the longer term solution is, and it's beginning to happen, we actually have to build more refineries here to refine more U.S. product, and we have to get that on the market. And that just takes a little time.
Okay, very good. Well, we have Kes on the line from Texas. Kes, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Thank you. My question and comment is related to gas, and the first speaker spoke about it. Now, the war in Iraq has been largely successful. But we can safely say gas prices right now is because of the war, the way the hike in the price. Mm-hmm. And my concern is with Trump not losing his base because of the temporary pain that we are paying at the gas point, at the gas station. Right. And I for one, I'm committed to voting for Trump for a long time. Let me put it that way. But by the time it gets to the midterms and people are still feeling the pain of the cost of gas, I mean, I'm worried that he might lose some of his base.
Yes, that's a good question. Rod, we've talked about that before. So, the American people don't have much patience when it comes to things that inconvenience them. And so high gas prices, that costs, that's more than an inconvenience. That can really cripple a family. So as he said, if this drags on, how much does that affect the midterms?
Well, I'm still paying less than I did under Joe Biden, and I don't think CNN's going to mention that. So, we do have to keep some level of perspective. Biden didn't have a war going on and managed to blow up prices on literally everything. We were running over a 9% inflation rate during part of his term, and that's Carter era stuff. So we do have to keep a certain amount of perspective. I don't want to tell people they're not hurting. We're all hurting to a degree, but we're not hurting that much. I don't see anybody going unfed. I'm certainly eating a little too well. And the truth is, this all gets better. The short-term pain goes somewhere. There is a forever war in the Middle East. It's the one prosecuted by Iran for 47 years against everyone and everything that didn't submit to its very, very out there brand of Shia Islam. And to get rid of that problem is going to reduce the risk premium on petroleum, all product, LNG, crude, refined product, however you want to define it. It's going to reduce the risk premium on all of that tremendously, not necessarily before November, but over the next 18 to 24 months. Likewise, when the blockade ends, oil's going to be flowing like crazy. And the UAE, having pulled out of OPEC, means they're going to almost double their production, and they're going to ship it by pipeline across Oman and just bypass the strait entirely. The Saudis have ramped up their transport of crude from what was going to the Ras Tanura terminal in the Persian Gulf to their east-west pipeline that terminates in the Red Sea. And that bypasses the Strait of Hormuz. So Iran is really nuking itself in the long term. In addition to losing its military, Iran is losing its leverage over the strait that it has exercised not by blockading the strait for the last 47 years, but by threatening to. We're not going to let them do that anymore in any way that matters. Or if it does happen, it'll be like, okay, so what? So every day this goes on, countries are realizing that they need more secure supply that doesn't come from a volatile region, and they're turning to Texas and Louisiana. Every day this goes on, more 20-year supply contracts get locked in from producers in Texas and Louisiana. And that's the reality. Trump understands. He is reordering the entire global economic order in a way that, sorry for the term, puts America first. And I think that's going to be a pretty easy case to make to the voters he needs in November. Finally, as to November, I was more worried about this 6 months ago. Now we have the Calais decision. The racially gerrymandered districts have to be dismantled. That takes 21 seats that were automatically Democrat out of play. Or at least partially so, makes them competitive. We're actually seeing some big progress on other redistricting matters in other parts of the country, both for us by, again, getting rid of these racially gerrymandered districts in places like Texas and Florida, and Alabama and elsewhere, but also blocking the Democrats' radical redistricting plan in Virginia, where a Democrat state Supreme Court ruled their plan unconstitutional. So I think we've got a good shot at expanding our majority, at least in the House, possibly the Senate, and I think we're going to have to really work for it. But I'm actually pretty bullish on November.
Good. Well, that's encouraging. Well, thank you, Kes. I appreciate the call, and we have time for one last quick call. Robin from Virginia. Robin, go ahead. Robin, go ahead.
Okay. Really quickly, thank you, Mr. Martin, for your faith in Jesus and your clear-headed analysis and the straight facts, the way you share it. So what I wanted to say was, if you could speak to one thing quickly, when it seems like people get their news from like shopping around for your favorite flavor or brand of chips or coffee, I feel like if you could say one or two more things about the analysis that Gordon Chang gives, or even Frank Gaffney, because I heard about Gordon Chang in January 2020. What would you say about them so people can rely on their information as well as you?
Real quick,
well,
Rod.
I love Gordon. I think he's a great resource. Frank Gaffney is a great resource. And I would really encourage people to pay attention to the Epoch Times, which does a fantastic job. Also, NTD News. Put it on your cable and watch it. Those guys do a great job.
Amen to that. Well, Rod, thanks for being my guest, and thanks for all the calls today, everybody. Go out, shine for Christ, and share what great things the Lord has done for you, and God will use you as His witness. God bless you.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Where can you access instruction and inspiration from scholars, apologists, authors, preachers, and activists to deepen your Christian understanding? You could enroll in seminary, but a better way might be the AFA Cultural Institute. You'll find a collection of more than 50 informative inspirational video lectures with more to come. Visit stream.afa.net to experience the AFA Cultural Institute.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.